Okay, we are live. Just waiting for some people to join the live stream. And then we'll get started. Alrighty, we're getting some people to join the live stream here. We'll get some people to join the live stream, and then we'll get started with this matchup, Giants-Cowboys. This is the first live stream that I've done this year. And I definitely want to preview this matchup because I think it's a pretty big matchup. Kind of a season-changing game here for the Giants versus Dallas. I think basically all of us thought their season was pretty much over after the first 3 weeks. Huge comfort behind win against New Orleans last week. And now all of a sudden there's some life and there's really some legitimate interest in this matchup. First, the Dallas Cowboys here in Week 5. I can't believe we're already in Week 5. I also can't believe the Jets are on my TV because it is a really boring and bad game. But we'll let more people trickle into the chat, and then we'll kind of get started breaking down this matchup. I also want to talk about some injury news because obviously the Giants have some guys that are out. And then there's some guys who will be playing. One specific guy, Andrew Thomas, it looks like he will be ready to go for today's game. Looks like he'll be starting at left tackle for the Giants. So that is huge, huge news. He's been dealing with a foot injury all week at practice. He was listed as questionable. He was seen limping a lot during practice, but it looks like he will be playing. We're just going to kind of wait for more people to get into the chat, join the chat, and then we'll really break down this this matchup here between the Giants and the Cowboys. And the play of Daniel Jones, which I think that's what really a lot of people are really hyped up about. Not so much that the Giants won a game, obviously that's important, but Jones, the way that he played and the way he's been playing has been huge. And I think that's what really has re-energized the Giants fan base. So we will get into that. I want to talk about the Giants defense because it's been really terrible. It's really been a defense that last year was fairly productive. They were a good team. I believe they were top 10 in defensive EPA and expected points added. This year they're doing nothing right. They really are not good at literally anything. Rushing the passer, stopping the run. Nothing. I mean, I don't know. I think anyone who's watching them understands that too. You don't even need the stats to tell you. It's a pretty bleak and boring Giants defense. They're just not getting pressure on the quarterback. I think they're last in quarterback hits. So that's not what you want if you're the Giants, especially after last year. Last year they played fairly well. They were a good defense last year, even with an offense that didn't perform last year. The Giants defense still played fairly well. So I don't know what's going on with the Giants defense. We will talk about that in this stream. We'll do a quick live stream here, a quick pregame show. Like I said, there hasn't been much to pregame when it comes to the Giants for the past few years. There really haven't been too many matchups that have been interesting. It's kind of just like, all right, well, the Giants are not expected to win that games, but let's see if they can just kind of improve and look good. This is kind of a year where the Giants have to start winning games, or people are going to get fired and things are not going to end the right way. So I think it's important to preview this matchup. And like I said, as we get more people to trickle into the live stream here, into the chat. Lost my train of thought. In terms of this game, there's a different vibe because of the importance of the season, like I was just mentioning, but also because of Daniel Jones. Jones is playing outstanding. We will talk about him in this live stream. Once we get more people to join, we will talk about Daniel Jones and how well he's played this year, how really, really well he has played. We'll give you all the analytics on that. A lot of the videos I do are very just kind of news. It's just straight up news and I'll add some analytics here or there. But I do like doing more in-depth stuff and kind of explaining and analyzing the current situation with the Giants and certain teams that they're playing and where they currently stand. So for those that have just have joined, Andrew Thomas, according to Jordan Reynan, the plan is for him to start. The plan is for him to play. They added Corey Cunningham off the practice squad yesterday. Cunningham actually has started at left tackle in his rookie season with Arizona. He was a 7th-round pick, a rookie with Arizona. He started 6 games at left tackle. So he is a guy that has experience at left tackle if the Giants needed that. Now, I think even if Thomas wasn't playing, I think you would still see Solder at left tackle and Parrott at right tackle. But just at least a somewhat viable left tackle option just in case. A guy that has started 6 games in the NFL at left tackle. And the Patriots actually traded. The Patriots actually traded, I believe, a 6th-round pick for Cunningham after the 2018 season. So not too bad of a player that you had on your practice squad. I think it's at least a viable roster backup option at the left tackle spot. So I'll just kind of get into Daniel Jones in his season. Actually, I do want to add also, I've talked about this in a few videos, but Slayton, Shepard, Jabril Peppers, Ben Bredesen, all out. They will not be playing. They will not be playing this week versus Dallas. So, 2 pretty viable receiving options not available. That probably means more Kadarius Toney. We'll talk about him in this video. So what the analytics are saying about him. He's one of the most elusive playmakers, ball carriers in the NFL. I think anyone who watches him would probably agree with that. He is shifty. He is a human joystick. He reminds me very much of Dante Hall. If you look at Dante Hall, the Chiefs punt returner, kick returner back in the day, that's who he reminds me of, and I think Kadarius Toney will be more productive as a receiver than Dante Hall was. But Shepard, Slayton, Peppers, and Ben Bredesen out. Matt Skura probably continue playing left guard as he did last week. You look at the Giants' offensive line last week against New Orleans. They didn't allow a sack against a pretty good New Orleans defense. And sacks aren't everything. I've talked about that so many times. But for a group that's trying to gain some positive momentum, it is something that you look at and you say, okay, it's a good sign. You don't want to give up sacks. You don't want to give up pressure. So if you don't give up sacks and pressures, obviously it's a good thing. All right, so let's talk about Daniel Jones. I do want to talk about him in the season that he's having. Like I said, I think that a lot of people are re-energized with the Giants. A lot of people are re-energized, not just because they won a game or they came from behind to win a game, but it's the play of Jones. He's played really, really well this season. And if you look at the numbers, he's 3rd in average completed air yards, 2nd in aggressiveness percentage. So 3rd in average completed air yards per attempt, and he's 2nd in aggressiveness percentage, which takes into account throws into tight windows. I have no issue with people being aggressive if they're going to make plays down the field, which is what he's doing. The issue was in his first few years. His aggressiveness percentage was high, but his yards per attempt and his completions, he wasn't throwing the football down the field consistently. So it's basically a high risk, low reward kind of play. If you're going to throw a short pass into a tight window, probably a high risk play, obviously, because it's in a tight window, but it's probably going to be a low reward return. So I'm all about, I actually don't mind players throwing interceptions here and there if they're taking legitimate risks. So you see that with him this year. You see his average completed air yards going up, 3rd best in the NFL. You also see his aggressiveness percentage 2nd in the NFL. So he's being aggressive, but he's also making plays downfield. And that's what I like to see from a quarterback. That's kind of what I always thought would be. That's why I originally liked the hire of Jason Garrett. Now, we've all been very critical of Jason Garrett. But originally, I liked the hire of Jason Garrett because I'm like, okay, some play action, maybe throws down the field more consistently. They didn't do that last year. His yards per attempt was low. And he wasn't very productive last year. But you're starting to see that this year. Like I said, we've all been very critical of Jason Garrett. But so far, the good thing coming out of the Garrett hire is the ability and the opportunities that Jones is taking downfield, the chances he's taking downfield on a consistent basis. And that is what you want to see. Yeah, last year the Giants' defense was really good. I believe top 10 in top 10 in defensive EPA. They were good. They were good defense. I think that there should be more criticism. Yes, I last year I think that they were a really good group, and people were like, I think they exceeded expectations too, and they were one of the top teams in pressure percentage. But you look at this year, and their defense is basically terrible at everything. Even James Bradbury, who I thought was probably their best defensive player last year, maybe Leonard Williams was their best guy, but James Bradbury was great last year, and he hasn't looked the same. His passer rating allowed is like mid 90s. He just hasn't been the same. He has not been the same guy. So, and that's really with a lot of pieces on their defense. They are last in quarterback hits. They're not getting pressure consistently. You look at, again, I like to really point to the analytics because we all watch. We all watch the games, and we can kind of judge for ourselves. And we know that they're not playing very well, but you also look at the numbers, and it kind of confirms what you're seeing. They're 26th in defensive EPA, 29th in pressure percentage, last in quarterback hits, and they've allowed the 10th highest yards per play. So they're just not getting it done. They're not, and even when it comes to run defense, they're 18th in rush defense EPA, which is something that they've normally been good at. Even when they weren't a great defense over the past few years, they usually were pretty good stopping the run, and that's something that they're not even doing well this season, and that needs to change this week for them because Ezekiel Elliott's averaging over 5 yards per carry. Tony Pollard is averaging almost 7 yards per carry. If they're going to give a big chunk plays on the ground, forget it. I mean, it's going to be a disaster of a game. If they're able to do that and then some play action stuff, Dak is a really, really good player. 8 yards per attempt. And if you look at what the Cowboys are doing, too, offensively, you have like Dalton Schultz and Tony Pollard, two guys that, you don't expect to be the centerpieces of their offense. You expect it to be Zeke or Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb. These two guys have had really, really productive years. Schultz, I believe, has 4 touchdowns receiving on like 23 targets. He's been a pretty viable option for Dak. He's a good player. He's a good tight end. So the Giants first have to stop the run in this game because, like I said, if they don't, right now they're not looking too good. Their run defense EPA is not great, and they haven't done a great job stopping the run. It's going to be a long day if they can't stop Zeke and Tony Pollard, who, I mean, they're just running it like crazy. I believe the Cowboys offensive line, they're 4th in run block win rate. We know that they have a solid unit, but that's a really good running football team. Make an argument it's the best in the NFL, one of the best run rushing offenses in the NFL. So you definitely want to stop them. You definitely want to slow them down, or else it's not going to be good. It's just not. They're going to be putting together long drives and tiring down the Giants' defense, taking the ball away from Daniel Jones and the Giants' offense. So priority number 1, make sure that you can somewhat contain Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. You have to do that if you're the Giants' defense. I want to get back to Daniel Jones because I think it's important to talk about him because he's really the centerpiece of this potential revival for the Giants. He's what people are really watching at the moment. He's the guy that, like I said, maybe even things don't work out this year for the Giants and wins-losses wise. Maybe they missed the playoffs, but a lot of people are excited about Daniel Jones, and they feel like the Giants have found a quarterback at least. So at least if they found a quarterback, Andrew Thomas at left tackle, a really important piece, they can say, all right, next GM or maybe next whoever it might be, you at least have some pretty strong cornerstone pieces to work with. And you don't have to spend another high pick on a quarterback and wait for him to develop or whatnot. So I think that's what really has injected some energy into the Giants fan base. So we'll see. We'll see how this season plays out. The rookie card market for Daniel Jones is through the roof. That's interesting. That's funny. I want to see if there's any Daniel Jones NFTs out there. I don't know if any of you guys are into that, but I know Tom Brady recently started an NFT line. Bunch of other athletes, I believe, kind of went with him. It's called like autograph dot something. I don't even think it's .com. It's autograph something. And all these different NFTs. Tom Brady, Derek Jeter, and all these other guys. Yeah, so Kadarius Toney, he has forced the second most missed tackles, I believe, any wide receiver. He's forced the second most. He's only caught 10 passes. And if you look at his separation, he's averaging 3.7 yards of separation, which the league average is like 2.8, 2.83. So he is a guy before the catch. He's creating separation and helping his quarterback, and after the catch, he's as elusive as it gets. 6 forced missed tackles on 10 receptions. Is it too risky to have him on special teams? No, I think that he should be returning punts. I think that he should be returning kicks. Why waste him? Why waste that potential? I mean, there's a very good chance he could take one to the house on any play, and that's a game-changing kind of play for the most part. If you can add 7 points on special teams, you can add 7 points on a touchdown on special teams, that's a huge bonus. That is a huge bonus for a team where your offense doesn't have to put together a 7 or 8 play drive and go down the field. If you can just get a punt return touchdown, you get a quick score like that, that's huge. I mean, special teams isn't obviously the most important or the second. It's obviously the third most important. But like I said, if you can steal some points on special teams and you have a player that can very easily do that, there's nobody that's questioning Kadarius Toney's elusiveness and his ability to run with the football. I am 100% putting him back there. Jabril Peppers is not active. He is out, hamstring injury. It looks like Slayton, Shepard, Peppers, and Bredesen, they're out, but they'll probably play next week in week 6. Nervous about Andrew Thomas. I understand. I think that, a lot of people have been saying that he was limping all week during practice, and it looks like he's trending in the direction of playing today, according to Jordan Raynon. They brought up Corey Cunningham from the practice squad, so they at least have someone who has left tackle experience if they need it. Nate Solder would play left tackle most likely, but just in case. At least you have a backup with left tackle experience just in case. Also, what else we got? RPOs, yes. If you look at Daniel Jones in terms of play action in general, he's averaging almost 9 yards per attempt on play action. And that's among 31 attempts. So he's averaging almost 9 yards per attempt on play action. And understand this, too. Analytically, there's really no correlation. You don't need to run the football, as an elite team in order to set up the play action. I know that's kind of like an old football myth. You need to run the football really well so you can set up the play action. The numbers actually say that it really doesn't matter. You don't need to have a great running game to get teams on play action for play action to be effective. So obviously the Giants have not ran the ball the way that they would like to, especially with Barkley back. But Daniel Jones on play action plays, almost 9 yards per attempt on 31 attempts. And, on those play action plays, it gives you a little bit extra time for your receivers to get down the field, for your quarterback to stretch the field and make plays. And think about this. Last year, Daniel Jones led the league in passer rating on deep passes, which was 20-plus yards, 20 yards plus. He's leading the league again in deep passing, 20-plus yards down the field. He's leading the league in passer rating for the second straight season. So I think you do more play action. You do more play action with Jones. As I mentioned, almost 9 yards per attempt on play action this year on 31 attempts. You do more play action. Get your receivers a little bit further down the field. I don't know. If I'm the offensive coordinator, I'm taking as many chances as possible with Jones down the field. He's a really good passer when it comes to stretching the field. And you have some good players. You have some good wide receivers, guys that are going to get big yards per reception, that are going to stretch the field. Kenny Galladay's that guy. He's been that guy throughout his career. He's a big play wide receiver. Speaking of Galladay, if you look at his average separation yards that he's created, he has gone up every single week in creating separation. He was injured a little bit in camp, injured kind of this year, early part of this year. But now he's averaging around 3.3, 3.4 yards of separation, which week 1 he was averaging less than a yard of separation. So that has increased immensely. Looks like he's healthier. He's creating more yards of separation. I'll tell you what, if you're a fantasy football guy and you can still get Kenny Galladay maybe a little bit on the cheap because he hasn't broke out yet, I would think about doing that because it looks like he's starting to get healthy and it looks like he's ready to go. And he kind of ran over Malcolm Jenkins in that in last week's game, kind of pushed him off. It looks like he's back. It looks like he's healthy and ready to go. So fantasy football wise, I would think Kenny Galladay is definitely a guy that if you can still kind of get him on the lower end and not pay too much in a trade, I would definitely advise that. He's ready to go. Evan Ingram, yes, I wouldn't throw to him. I joked around about this in one video, but Evan Ingram is like my tight end. I would have Matt Parrott as the tight end 3 over Evan Ingram. I would do Rudolph, Caden Smith, and Matt Parrott. And Evan Ingram, I don't know, man. I'm absolutely done with Evan Ingram. There's just no way I'm taking a chance in a game like this, especially against Dallas. Big game, big division rival game. If it's fairly close, I'm not putting him on the field. Maybe in a blowout, you want to get him some snaps, fine. But the fumbles, the drop passes, the tip passes in the air, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. You can't take a risk. Caden Smith, Rudolph, that's it. So that is that with Jones. Like I said, more play action, high yards, completed air yards per attempt, one of the best deep ball passers in the NFL, and one of the best rushing mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. He's leading the league in yards per attempt on the ground. So he is having a year and a half. Even if you look at EPA, he's sixth in overall expected points added among quarterbacks, and he's fourth in pocket time. The Giants' offensive line has actually been fairly good in pass protection. They're 12th in pressure percentage allowed. They're giving him some time, and like I said, more play action. It's a myth. You do not need to be great on the ground to run a good amount of play action. You can still get people to bite, and you can still be effective, even if your run game is not as good as you would like it to be. So, yeah, Jones, I think there needs to be a little bit more RPO stuff, and definitely let Jones run a little bit more. You don't want to push it too much because he's had some injuries in the past. He had, a hamstring injury last year. In his rookie season, I think it was a foot injury, so you want to be careful. He's had these lower body injuries from running and doing all these different things. You want to be careful because look, if you lose Jones, you want to talk about unwatchable football. If you lose Jones, I mean, there might not even be a point of turning the TV on. So they have to be careful with that, but at the same time, he is elusive. He is a really good mobile quarterback. So we talked about Kadarius Toney, second in forced missed tackles. He's only caught 10 passes. Kenny Golladay continues to increase his yards of separation each and every week. He's getting better and better and better. Looks like he's getting ready. Looks like he's good to go. A little bit banged up to start the season. Giants offensive line, you look at last week, they didn't allow a sack against the good Saints defense. Andrew Thomas hasn't allowed a sack this year. We'll see how he is. We'll see how he is in this game, and the Giants are going to have to judge this because, if he's limping all throughout practice this week, they're going to have to kind of play this by ear and understand where, pushing him too much in this game. You don't want him to be out for, let's say, a month stretch because you pushed him too much in this game. You got to be smart about it. I know that people don't love Nate Solder, but if you have to play Nate Solder, let's say in the second half, if it means protecting Andrew Thomas in the long term, do it. Do it. Just try and get by with Nate Solder for a half. Be smart with it because this guy is easily their best offensive lineman, and he looks really good this year. And you don't want to ruin the momentum that he has created this year in his second season. You don't want to ruin it where all of a sudden he really gets injured and he's out 6 weeks, and yeah, that would be a long half. You don't want to lose him where all of a sudden he's out 6 weeks and he had a great start and now he's out, and maybe he gets back and he's rusty when he comes back and then he ends the season not so. You don't want that. There is a mental component to this game. Obviously, momentum and positive play, it's important. So we talked about the Giants' offensive line. We talked about Toney. We talked about Golladay, some of the injuries. Daniel Jones, like I said, more play action with him. If they can run a little bit more design run plays and make sure that he slides. You don't want him taking hits because he's had some lower body injuries in the past. So that is basically that kind of with the Giants' offensive end. And we'll talk about the Giants' run game too and kind of what the Cowboys have defensively. Hey, Dad. Yeah, I mean, there's really not too many excuses to be made with, you still have Toney, you still have Golladay, you still have Barkley, even with Shepard and Slayton out, you still got some good players. And there really isn't too many excuses. The only excuse really would be if Thomas is not able to play and all of a sudden you're really banged up on the offensive line and, that you have to kind of judge the situation depending on what's happening. You have to be as objective as possible and kind of maybe different tweaks and injuries and things that happen during the game because, as we know, those things sometimes pop up. But it looks like Slayton and Shepard are trending to play next week. And I'll also say this about Slayton. I know a lot of people have wanted the Giants to trade him or, hey, he stinks and all this. Okay, I get it, but Galladay, he's had some injuries in his career. Shepard has been very injury prone. Barkley's had his injury situations. John Ross has been, he's an injury prone player. So I know that a lot of people want to get rid of Slayton, but he's still a solid player, averages over 15 yards per reception. He's a good player. I know that he's had some drops. I know that Kadarius Toney is the shiny new toy, and so is Galladay, and Barkley's back, and it's easy to forget about Slayton. But if you lose, let's say, Galladay and Shepard for a 3-week stretch, I bet you want Slayton back at that point. So don't give up on him just yet. There's been some injuries with some of these guys in the past, with Galladay, with Shepard, with John Ross, with Barkley. You want as much depth as possible, because the last thing you want is, let's say it's week 10 and Daniel Jones is throwing to maybe Kadarius Toney's the wide receiver 1, and then after that it's like Dante Pettis. That's not ideal. You don't want to put him in that spot. So Darius Slayton, I'm keeping, especially on his rookie contract. You still have another year after this. You're paying him virtually nothing, unless they got a really good pick in return, which I don't see that happening. I keep him. He's worth the roster spot. He's worth the depth piece, and he's still a home run hitter. He's a good player. Don't give up on him just yet. Now let's talk about the Cowboys defense. It's an interesting group because you have Micah Parsons, the rookie. Parsons is 7th among edge rushers in pass rush win rate. He's been really, really good as a rookie. You have Trevon Diggs. He has 5 interceptions. He has 8 passes defended. His passer rating allowed is like 28. He has been outstanding. So there's some pieces on this Cowboy defense. Some of these younger players, they're good. But you look in total, and they're 24. It's weird because they're 24th in run defense EPA, expected points added, but they're 2nd in run stop win rate, which is kind of weird. They have Osa Odigizua, one of their young defensive linemen. He has about 7 pressures, a few sacks. He's an interesting young piece on their defense. But in terms of their pass rush in general, 24th in pressure percentage, 17th in pass rush win rate. I wouldn't worry too much about them getting after Jones. If you just look at the numbers, like I said, Micah Parsons is one player. He's having a really good year. But aside from that, it's not that scary of a front 7 in terms of rushing the quarterback. The Giants' offensive line should be able to hold their own, especially if Andrew Thomas is able to play the entire game and if he's healthy. So I'm not too worried if I'm the Giants about the Cowboys' defense. Anthony Brown is one guy, if you're going to target, I would start throwing his way. Trevon Diggs is a guy you got to watch out. He is hot right now. He has 5 interceptions. He's balling. Diggs overrated? I don't know. Diggs is pretty good. He's a good player. And I'd have to look back, but I don't think he had a great rookie season, or he didn't play well last year. But this year he's having a really productive year, and right now he's just on fire. He's just intercepting passes left and right, and he's having a great start to the season. So if they can go the other way, Anthony Brown's the guy, pass rating over 100 allowed this year. He's definitely someone to target. Definitely someone that I would target if I were the Giants. Let's kind of move over to what, he was getting burned last year. Diggs wasn't that great last year. He was getting burned, but this year he's been really, really good. The Cowboys offense is a weird group because you would expect Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb to be absolutely stealing the show, but really Tony Pollard's had a great start to the year. Dalton Schultz, he's been targeted 23 times. He has 4 touchdowns, so Dak has really distributed the football, or at least in the run game, it's been a nice, even, somewhat, I'm not going to say even balance, but they've done a nice job giving Tony Pollard a good amount of touches. Zeke is averaging over 5 yards per carry, so he's doing really well. They're 4th in run block win rate as an offensive line. So the Cowboys are going to run the football, and they're going to probably run it fairly well against the Giants defense that's 18th in run defense EPA. Giants defense is not doing too many great things these days. Adoree Jackson has been a really nice add, a passer rating of like 83. You don't hear him too much during games because he's usually doing a pretty good job. He's usually covering receivers and doing his job. James Bradbury has not been the same player. McKinney has not been the same player. Ryan, a lot of these guys, not a great year for the Giants defense. So Dak is averaging 8 yards per attempt. He's having 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's playing really well. And like I said, they're really distributing on their offense fairly well. from Zeke to Pollard to Schultz to Amari Cooper to CeeDee Lamb to all these different players. They're doing a nice job of really distributing the football. So the Giants have to watch out. It's not just going to be one thing, that one player you have to keep your eye on. Dak's a good quarterback, and he knows how to, all right, you want to put more attention on Cooper or Lamb? I'll go to the other guy. I'll go to the next guy. I'll go to the fourth receiver. He's a good player. He's a good quarterback. So you have to be careful with that. It's an explosive offense, and it's going to be tough to stop. There's a reason they're 3-1. They're doing a nice job on the offensive side of the football. And the defensive side of the football, they're doing pretty well too. They're 11th in defensive EPA. It's a good unit. It's a good group in general. So that is basically that. I kind of want to go over the Giants defense quickly one more time. They're 26th in defensive EPA, 29th in pressure percentage, last in quarterback hits, 18th in run defense EPA. I don't know. If the Cowboys are running the football the way that they have ran the football to start this season against this Giants defense, oh my goodness. You're going to see 10, 12-minute drives or something, because these dudes can run the football. Like I said, 4th in run block win rate. And Zeke averaging over 5 yards per carry. Tony Pollard averaging almost 7 yards per carry. That's number one. That's the number one priority for the Giants defense. Stop the run game, because if they don't, it's going to be a disaster. Because Dak he'll pick you apart. He'll distribute the football. That won't be an issue for him, especially if they have a good run game, and they'll find a way to score a good amount of points, keep Daniel Jones off the field, and completely control the game. So it starts up front. Got to see Dexter Lawrence, got to see Leonard Williams. You got to see some of these guys, Danny Shelton, have to step up against the run. They have to do a better job against the run, or else this is going to be a tough game to watch, because it'll just be like death by a million cuts. It'll just be like, 7-yard carry, and then 6-yard carry, and then 8-yard carry, and it'll just be, they'll take down the clock, and they'll be getting yards, and it'll be a long day. So that's number one. Make sure you do that if you are the Giants. So I think I've basically went over everything. Giants offensive line, some of their injuries, the way that they played last week. They're still like in the high teens, mid-teens in run block and pass block win rate. But last week I think was a fairly positive game for their offensive line. Didn't allow a sack. It looked like Jones was back there, had enough time. He's 4th in pocket time. So he's had time to throw the football this year. And the pressure percentage is like 12th. So in general, I think he's been given enough time, and he's out there and he's making plays. So that is that. My prediction for this game, I think the Cowboys are the better team, but I don't know. I mean, you never know. After a win like that with the Giants and what Daniel Jones has shown, maybe he can put the team on his back. So I think, if I'm trying to be objective here, I think Dallas probably wins this game. But at the same time, division games, you just never know, especially with a hot quarterback. Daniel Jones is hot right now. He is playing really, really well. So that's it. Thanks for joining the live stream. Hopefully I can do this every single week, and we'll set different times. So I'll kind of be better with alerting you guys when we're going to do it. So thanks for joining.